Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to The Element Podcast.
Starting to feel old, and the years, where did they go? You want to go back, but you know that'll never.
What's going on, all my woods people? I hope that your stomach still fits your pants at this point. I'm actually just worried about this holiday season. I haven't eaten very much this year. Like, as opposed to last year, I felt like I kind of fattened up during deer season. I have kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good term for this, but I've just kind of done this thing kind of hard enough that like I feel like I've lost weight during hunting season.
Makes one of us. It all started way back on our first trip to Iowa.
Oh,
well, that's the thing is you go to elk season and you're in the mountains and you just hog out while you're there because you need the calories, and then you come back and you still have that hunger, but you're not burning the calories, and it's just a downhill roll from there. But I know that whenever we go to Iowa and stay in a hotel and have milk and cookies, I can't stop, and it just gets bad. But it's so good.
That was a rough trip.
It was, man.
Like as far as like rough on eating lots of good food.
Yeah,
it's like. It was a good place to put on a lot of weight.
It was.
We ate a lot of cookies,
We
dude.
did. Boy, it was cold, man. When it's cold, you want to eat a lot.
It's early season cold, you know. We hadn't put on our winter coats yet. And so we just decided to put it all on during that trip.
That's right, man. The good thing about hunting in the winter is that you wear a lot of layers, and it's real hard to tell how fit you are. Like, you're either in the, like, well, we say winter. I guess it's the fall, but cold weather. You're either like a fat neck or a skinny neck. You know, like there's not like not a percent body fat look, you know, too much. It's just like, okay, you really, you brought some of this into season. You know what I'm saying? But, anyways, we're doing our best to not put on too much. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving, honestly, because the past 2 weeks I've really refrained from eating delicious foods. I've just been eating like substance, you know. So like
that's how I've been.
What's left over in the fridge? Oh, okay, 2 hot dog wieners, some refried beans, and some arugula. All right,
make a awesome refried bean hot dog with arugula sprinkled on top.
Delicious.
I mean, those are good foods.
They are.
You know what I mean?
They are.
I've been kind of, that's kind of why I've lost weight is like, or I don't know if I've lost weight, but that's why I feel good about where I'm at because I've been sleeping in the back of a truck and living food-wise out of like a big plastic like Rubbermaid. Sorry, I'm
the kind that slides under the bed.
Yeah, like kind of thing almost, but it's just a clear one with some clips on it, so I can see what foods are in there. You know, and I've been living out of that, and so like it's basically when you're doing that, the easiest way to do this thing, if you're sleeping in the back of a truck, is to pull the old pocket rocket out and put the can of soup on top. You get a pop top so that you don't have to can open that dude, and bring a can opener. So you get the pop tops, open it up, put the can of soup on the pocket rocket, light it up, and you stir it, pretty regularly until it warms up. And then you eat out of the can, and you just got trash and a spoon, you know what I mean? So at that point, like, I'm eating basically my food every night, or a lot of nights, has been a can of soup and an avocado with some tagine on it. And that's a pretty, like, lean diet. You know what I mean? I haven't really had cookies because, when I did the first hunt, I got all that food together, and then, like, started to wane a few days into that. I started to lose most of my food. And then when I restocked, it was just feverishly restock, like whatever I can find.
That's right.
It wasn't
have a package of crackers. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't go to the grocery store, really. It was more just like get some soups at the grocery store and then throw crackers and chips, half bags in there and stuff like that. So anyway, it's been like it's not a purposeful diet, but it's been a diet, I guess.
And it's part of that's because, like, we didn't go up there and powwow this past time. You rolled solo to Iowa, and that's what we were going to kind of get into a little bit here. And it worked.
It worked.
So
I'm tired of it working solo, though. I want it to work with you, dude.
Man. Like, what's the deal with that? Why do we lose when we're together?
You videoed me shoot a doe and a buck so far, right?
In life?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's right.
Nameless, and then the the doe in Texas, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So everything else, which this year I've shot 3 deer and all have been solo videoed, and I think only one of them is actually the kill shots on video. That's just the way it happens sometimes when you're solo videoing. But I tried, because of that, I actually, we'll get into this, but I tried to video or get one on video in Iowa, and that caused me to not shoot that deer, basically.
The video camera throughout the element's existence has saved a few deer.
This year especially.
Yeah, for sure. And it's even, there's times when the deer wasn't going to get shot and it's still messed up. So, like, it's not just saving deer, it's like alerting deer too. So
that's good.
Anyway, so
I'll go up there.
Yeah, you rolled up there by yourself.
And it was like what you would consider as a human, like, good weather. It wasn't necessarily good hunting weather, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't like hot or anything necessarily, but like pretty moderate temps, which I was excited about, because you got to think about it this way. With what I'm up there doing, I've got an entire hang and hunt system on my back, clothes, and depending on how cold it is, more clothes, which makes it more difficult to carry all this stuff in. And then camera equipment, all by myself, going in by myself. It's a lot of weight. And then it's a lot of putting stuff up. And when it's freezing cold, you've got to sort through all the clothes, and then you've got to put all this equipment up, which includes all the sticks, the stand, and then the camera arm, and the camera base, and the camera. And it's like, by the time you get done with that, your hands are frozen solid if it's, sub-freezing out there. So I was kind of glad.
You've been rolling no gloves a lot this season, too.
Yeah, I have. I actually have been on that trip in Kansas a little bit. I was using those little Sitka gloves I got that's got, like,
missing fingers?
Yeah, it's actually got an index and thumb, which is pretty handy, but those fingers can nearly fall off. So
believe it.
Like, it's handy from a phone standpoint and all that. Like, when you're walking in, if you can just put your sticks in, like, the 3 fingers, and then and then the other ones you just kind of hold them together so they get heat,
tuck them into each other.
That's exactly right. I'll just do that. And then when you get ready, like when you're walking in, you're like, oh, I need to make sure I'm still headed the right way in the dark here, and you look at your OnX or whatever and find out you're headed the right direction. Then it's a good system, I guess. So I used that a bunch. I didn't like the gloves at first, which I think I mentioned to you, but anyway. Kind of a small detail that I'm going on about, but anyway, I have been rolling no gloves, and it's a cold endeavor, so I was glad that the weather was pretty good, and so I guess I hunted. And I'm trying to remember this. Things have really flown by this year, but I hunted basically this time around. I hunted all public stuff because the private that we had our encounters with those big old toads. That if you've seen the YouTube video, we're about to fight. The big deer we got in range and everything. I found out on the way up that was no longer an option for me. That I was not able to hunt that property with those deer on it. So that was it was weird. I felt weird about it because like I didn't get like anxiety about it, but I was kind of disappointed. But then it was like immediately it was like, okay, I got to figure something out. And I can't say whether or not I may or may not have looked at OnX while I was driving a little bit. May or may not. I don't know. Probably didn't. But anyway, I ended up just like magically knowing a spot to go. And so I found public and was hunting several different areas. I actually didn't get to leave out early, so I didn't hunt. I just traveled the first day. It's a long way to Iowa from Texas. And the next morning was my first hunt, which you know how much I love hanging hunts in the morning.
Oh, they're the best.
To a place I've never been. So I actually had a long walk in and had talked with our buddy John on the way up several times actually through text and phone.
Yeah.
And we were just game planning, and he was like, man, this is a place. He was lying to me, but he was like, this is a place a lot of deer are. And so he sent me in like 1.25 miles, and I think he was trying to get me killed by a Sasquatch is what the issue or what the thing he was trying to do. He was unsuccessful, but he sends me into this, river bottom or whatever, and then into this ridge, and I was like, man, that looks good. And I actually had a marker. So he sent me 2 pins, and I had one of the pins were a couple hundred yards apart maybe, and one of the pins that I had was literally in the exact same spot as one of the pins he had. So I felt like, okay, I don't want a dude to just like to show me a spot necessarily, but if he's showing me a spot that I've kind of already map scouted and had a pin on, then I'm going to give it a try, and I'll go sit his other pin first and then move in the afternoon. So I set the ridge. It was a disaster of a walk-in, dude. I'm talking like ditches coming into the main river system that are just like straight up and down. And it had, I guess, rained recently. Dude, I don't know if there's slicker mud in the world than black mud in Iowa. Like, I'm talking, I fell 2 or 3 times on the way in that morning. One time I was stepping over a big log, and the arch of my foot landed on a log that's the size of like a baseball bat handle. And I just went flying straight sideways. Dude, I'm talking hit hard, and I went, in the woods by myself in the dark, I was like, And when I got up, I was like, I have to have lost something. And everything was still attached.
It's amazing.
But my bow, I was holding my bow by my string, and every time I fell with my bow, holding it by my string, it's like just flying around, and it smoked me in the head both times that I fell, dude. And on the sight one time. And I was like, okay, if I shoot a deer, it's going to be a miracle. And anyway, so I hunted and saw some turkeys and some hounds chasing them.
Oh, good.
Which was something that's plagued us this year.
Yeah,
so
dogs are cool.
They're great things. So anyway, that morning didn't go very well, but I was going to hunt in there all day. I forget my water. Which I thought I lost it when I fell. And so I looked all the way out, and then I find it in my truck. It had fallen out of my pack in the back of my truck. And so I didn't see it in the dark this morning, whatever. So anyway, I get out, I get some water, and I'm like, okay, I got to try to find something, make something happen. Long story short, I hunt some pretty interesting properties, some that are kind of like small and discreet, possibly overlooked, I guess you'd say, and some that are a little bit bigger over the next few days. I get to the point where I hunt in the evening. I haven't had a lot of luck on these hunts. If I see a deer or two, it's a pretty good hunt. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I attribute that to like a lockdown situation or just me just getting my feet under me in Iowa and figuring things out. It's a lot different than anywhere I've hunted really, and or what. But I go, okay, so I hunt a spot in the morning. And this is a good thing about like getting with people that are in the area to think about things, because I'm not like a ridge type of guy. Like I've never hunted ridges in my life, but I wanted to learn. At the same time, I've been up in Iowa for a lot of days at this point, but I could see how it worked, even though I didn't see any deer the first time I hunted on my buddy John's spot there. And so
Or the first time you and I hunted on his spot either.
Yeah. And so, but I could see how it worked. So I found a spot that to me looked pretty good, and it didn't look like a huge ridge from the map. And anyway, long story short, I go into this area and it's like 0.6 mile. It's not that far in, but it's like pretty treacherous. I had to cross a river through this thick CRP with deadfall on it, and then the ridge was a monster. It was like huge, dude. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not just hunting like the tail end of this ridge next to the creek. I'm basically hunting a ridge. And so I'm just going to set up to hunt a ridge while I'm in here. Walking up this thing in the dark, out of breath, feel like I'm in the Rockies again. And I get up there, and there's a deer on the ridge where you would assume that they'd be, kind of towards the top on the downwind side. From what I understand, this is just me understanding this from other people talking about it, right? Or writing about it. And so I pick a tree where there's no like solid trails necessarily, but there is a trail. I pick a tree based off of these two like ditches that go up the ridge. And I'm thinking, I'll blow my wind back into these ditches. Deer are going to come high enough up because they don't want to go up and down these two ditches, right? They just want to go over the top of that ditch. So I basically set up on them, or just above them, and had my wind blowing. And anyway, I think early I saw like a doe, and then I sat down, and I was just tired, man, you know, and I don't sit a whole lot when I hunt usually. And when I do, it's usually when I kind of just expect that nothing's going to happen, you know? And so at this point, I'm kind of expecting that. And I'm just tired from walking in that morning and walking the last few days, sleeping in the back of a truck and that kind of thing. And I sit down and I'm just chilling, and I'm kind of looking down the ridge. And I keep checking behind me, you know. I'm trying to keep my head on a swivel. And I turn around, check back behind me, and I see immediately, like even out of kind of my peripheral, I can tell it's a buck. And I'm like, Dad, gummit. And so like he's down there, you know, maybe 75 yards or whatever. So I hop up pretty quick, and I grab my bow, and I get the camera on, and I get it pointed, and like things are happening quick, but things are happening right, dude. Like he's coming right at me. And I've got everything in order. Like I'm not having to turn. A lot of times when you're self-filming, like you have to turn one way to grab your bow, and then one way to grab your camera all the way back 180 degrees, and then 90 to grab your rangefinder, you know, on these like hang and hunt self-films. Everything was there, dude. Like it just all was perfect. And so I start filming this buck, and quickly he gets to probably 18 or 20 yards, and I got it framed up and everything. And I clip on, and the camera it's been there holding for like 7 seconds, and it just noses it straight down.
Oh.
And like hits the camera arm. You can hear just donk, you know. He doesn't even know, you know.
Yeah.
He's like breathing fog out of an open mouth, like he's been just walking since, you know, 4 a.m. or whatever. And he's at like 18 yards, doesn't know. There's a pretty decent wind. And I was about to just smoke him right there, you know, chip shot, I feel like. And so then I get the camera back up because I'm like, okay, I can't do 3 in a row where I don't have the kill shot on film. Like I can't do that. This is a challenge, you know? So I like get the camera back up, crank the handle, tighten it, and it's up. And about the time that I pull my hand off of that to clip on again, he starts coming from 15, 18 yards straight at me. And he's like, got this, like, you know how a buck walks when he's smelling, his head's low, you know, or whatever, but he's like looking forward kind of, and he's got that kind of thing coming at me. And I'm like, I can't draw because he will see me. He's at 13 yards coming right now with his head straight towards me. He's not looking down. He's not looking sideways, nothing. He will see me draw, And anyway, he starts getting closer and closer, and he gets to like 5 yards. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I think I can see the top of his head enough that I can draw and he won't see me. And I get like quarter draw, and he looks up. He like sees my step and like follows the steps up the tree and sees me. He's looking at me like 5 yards. And I got this like quarter draw thing going on. It is weird, dude. And so I was like, I don't think I can hold this that long. And so I just was like, I'm going to draw as slow as I possibly can and just hope that like, it was just, your mind goes haywire, dude.
Yeah,
With all
sure.
that's going on, you're trying to get the camera going, all this stuff. So like I start trying to draw slow, and he just takes off, man, and goes over the ridge. And I wanted to throw my bow. I wanted to wrap it around a tree like Brendan Rhodes would do, and I was so mad about if I hadn't jacked with the camera and just like been okay with like having GoPro footage again of me shooting, like that's a dead deer all day, But instead, the camera did it weirdest thing. And so one reason that I wanted to shoot that deer so bad, and one reason that I was so mad, is that it was a nice 8. He wasn't huge, like 3 or 4 year old deer, probably 3 in Iowa, I don't know, but just a nice deer. And good G2s, good G4s, good frame, or 3s and good frame. And so really what it boiled down to was like, I've been at this point in Iowa for like 10 or 11 days total, 2 trips, lots of gas money spent. Like I had some decent cash from weddings and playing gigs and stuff built up, and I spent a lot of it on hotels when you and I were there. And so I just got to the point where I was like starting to feel pressure. And my wife kept telling me, don't feel pressure. Don't feel like pressure because of me or whatever. But it doesn't matter. I still do. I feel like an inconsiderate jerk, and I'm just spending all this money and time up there, even though, in all honesty, like I spent years putting in for this tag. Like it's a pretty special thing, So anyway, just feeling pressure. Hunted that evening. I ended up hanging again later in that day and staying in there till noon on the same ridge. And so,
why'd you move?
Because I ended up having some does and small bucks come by. It was pretty hot on that ridge that day. And they were coming across the top of one of those ditches lower than I thought they would, kind of. And so they were in bow range, but I didn't have shots back that way, and my wind's blowing at them. So at some point, like if a big buck comes through that same top of that ditch, like he's going to get my wind and I'm not going to have a shot. So I literally moved 20 yards.
Yeah.
And set back up and sat there and didn't see anything after that.
Yeah.
And so that was fun.
But you've been a genius if it would have worked.
Oh, yeah. I would have been, like, oh, that's a good move, I learned that from Sam Hogan, another one of my friends that's led me astray. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so I pull that stand at like noon, and I get down, I go chow down on some lunch and take off and go hunt another spot, and did the same thing. Hunted. Hung in a spot kind of late. Hung in a spot. Bucks start going crazy. Like I start seeing little bucks everywhere, and I knew the wind was going to be iffy, but I didn't know exactly how they use that property because there was good trails on one side of me that were like inside trails on the edge of this field, and then there was a creek on the other side of me, the downwind side, and I guess they wanted to hug the creek instead of use those inside trails. So they started winding me, so I got up and moved again for like the last 30 minutes of the hunt, and then didn't see anything until I'm breaking down and buck comes in, little one, But anyway, hard day. Like 4 hangs, probably did almost 6 miles by myself with all the gear. Just a tough day, like mentally, and after like not getting sleep the first night, it just kind of put me at a deficit. And anyway, I kind of got down in the dumps with everything that had happened that day. And man, I was just really, I guess it was that day, but sometime real close around that day, maybe the day after or whatever, I just got real down in the dumps. I actually ended up buying a hotel and trying to crash out pretty early. And I tried to text you. I texted some other friends a little bit. Some friends were just texting me or whatever. And every one of them were, like super hyped that I'm in Iowa or whatever. And I'm like super not hyped that I'm in Iowa. You know, I just was like feeling pretty sorry for myself. I knew that a cold front was coming in. It was going to rain up until like basically daylight the next morning. And I'm like, God, this doesn't give me an option to go far back in. I feel like I need to go far back in to kill deer here, you know, and that kind of thing. And especially after the main rut rush that happens in Iowa in early November. Well, I hit the hay early, get some encouragement from some friends like Sam and John and Anthony as well. And then get up the next morning kind of late and had decided that I was going to go to an area that is basically what I considered like a timber funnel that's like 100 yards wide in between two big blocks that are on the north and south ends. But this funnel is literally on the road. I mean, if you were to go as far up in this like particular funnel away from the road as you could, you'd only be probably like 200 yards off the road. So, but I knew the road was a unmaintained, like a non-maintained road, or, you know, semi-maintained. I knew that it was down in a river system or a creek system, and that after the rain, it would be super slick. I mean, I had been in there previous, I think maybe a day before, and I knew that road was super slick already before it was even rained on. So I was like, man, deer probably know that this road gets used very sparingly. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, since it's raining until like almost daylight, I'm just going to dive up in there as soon as it stops raining. And actually, like, I sat in my truck in the warmth because it was cold front coming in. And I sat there after it stopped raining for a while. And I set up, you know, it was getting pretty light when I was setting up. And I could have shot an elk if it was standing in the road. And I had a, you know, lane. Like, that's how close I was. Like, I was probably 70 yards off the road.
Okay.
So,
right,
like, I was within elk shooting distance of the road, you know. And so I went in, and there's like an old lane, and there was two deer trails that kind of like V'd into this lane, and I'm like, this is the spot, you know.
It's kind of an Iowa thing.
Yeah.
I guess it's like they logged for like housing timber or something a lot in there or something. There's like little roads and stuff through there all the time.
It's an old lane. Like you can hardly see it. But you can tell it's there when you show up and the deer trails are going into it. And so like I pick an oak tree. There's a bunch of oaks on this flat right next to the river. I pick an oak tree on the downwind side of it. It's got a west wind. And so I am on the east side of the trail, and I'm like, I put all my stuff down. I'm like, all right, this is the one. It's a close shot to this trail, but it gives me a for sure shot, you know. And I was like, man, you know what? There's a chance that old big buck wants to run right beside the river. So I like walked 15 or 20 yards or whatever back to the river. I was like, I need to see if there's a trail over here. There's a trail right on that dude, you know. And I'm like, okay. What I'll do is just make sure, because I couldn't shoot to that trail from that tree. I was like, I'll make sure I can shoot to that trail, back up a little bit, and to the lane. And I had a couple shots to the lane, but not nearly as good a shots as I did to the trail by the river, which was a lot more faint. Mm-hmm. And I pulled the old KC playbook out and was able to figure out from hunting East Texas that this was a trail. Like, it is not something you can really see that great, you know. And so I hang in the trail, or I hang in the tree, and I'm sitting there. I do my opening interview on the video, and I'm like, well, I'm either going to be a genius or I'm going to be an idiot. And so, you know, I sit there, and it's getting colder by the minute. I mean, It's one of those days where it's getting lighter and getting colder.
I was driving that day.
Yeah. It was pretty whack. So wind's blowing strong, like 20 miles an hour, you know. And the leaves are all coming off the trees. And I'm not getting B-roll at any of this because I'm like, I don't care. This is not going to happen. I'm sitting watching the road.
Our buddy Mike Hunsucker likes to, I think, well, one of the Heartland guys likes to text TCTT, too cold to text. So it's TCTBR. Too cold to B-roll.
That's right. That's it. Dude, it was, man. And that's the way it is a lot of times especially when we're hunting like public and we know that's like slim chances. But
yeah, it's like, I already filmed that tree 7 times this season, so I don't need to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wasn't getting any B-roll or anything, and I'm like, okay, the interview I just did. Now I'm gonna have to do a follow up at the end of this where I say, oh, I'm the idiot. You know, like I am the idiot that I talked about possibly being. And so at that point, the next logical step is to pull the Pop-Tarts out of the backpack. So I do. It's getting light. It's like 8:15. You know, that's about the time I eat Pop-Tarts every day. And by the way, Dad, gummit if a cherry Pop-Tart is not. Cherry is made for Pop-Tarts, and you can argue with me all you want, but like a tart cherry is the perfect thing for this sweet bread pastry that is called a Pop-Tart.
You know what's interesting is I think I could do Pop-Tarts without the frosting.
Yeah.
I
They
like
way.
the crust more than I do the frosting.
I like them pretty much equals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I had a cherry Pop-Tart that morning, a whole package, and it was making me feel good.
Do you ever eat half a package?
Never.
Okay, so I was wondering why you included that detail.
Never
I always
happens.
eat both Pop-Tarts.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure. Remember the morning in October on Public in Texas that I was like, I'm going to eat one now and eat one in like 45 minutes because it's October and we're not going to see anything. Mm-hmm. And then like literally 5 minutes later, I'm like, I ate them both, bro.
Yeah, I just hear some foil going over and like, hey.
Yeah. So anyway, I ate my cherry Pop-Tarts. And it's getting close to probably like 8:30 now. I'll sit there a little bit longer, and I'm like game planning for sure. Like, what's going to happen this afternoon? I need to give it a good go and make a hard go at this thing. And I got my head on a swivel still, and I turn around, and I can see down the river to the road pretty well, and it makes sense. But it's a low water crossing type situation, so there's no bridge. Mm-hmm. So there's creek flowing over the road, essentially. And I look down there, and the first deer I see this morning is a shooter buck coming across the road through the creek crossing.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And I was like freaking out, like, oh, my gosh. So I grab my bow, I get the camera and everything, and he disappears behind like this like levee and thick brush stuff coming towards the property I'm sitting on, the public. And I'm thinking, man, I hope he comes down the trail right here next to the river instead of out just if you're being a cheap shot, just like, or not cheap shot, chip shot. Sorry.
Yep.
An easy shot. And so, I get everything kind of ready, and then all of a sudden I see this doe pop out like right on the other side of that brushy levee or whatever, like probably 60 yards away. And it freaked me out because, like, I should have known that he was following a doe, but I thought he was just cruising, And so when the doe came out, I was like, oh, snap. And so she's like, to get around this like levee and brush, they have to come out. And so I'm thinking she's going to go to the lane at this point. And she wraps right back around to the river and starts coming down that trail. And I'm like, oh, this is about to get good. I hope that buck stays close to her, though, because she has a chance of hitting my wind, even though I'm pretty high and the wind's blowing pretty brisk and the trail's really close. But she still always has that opportunity, especially because your first step is sitting at 6 feet, right? You know, so it's got
especially because she's a doe and they're just weirdos.
They do.
Man.
They see everything, hear everything, smell everything.
That's right.
So the buck pops out behind her, and he's a 3-year-old 8-point that's heavy. Not super wide, got good 2s and 3s, like just a nice frame deer. And at this point, I'm like, I've been hunting Iowa like 11 or 12 days total this year. I mean, I gave it a good go. Like most guys get 7 to 10. So this is there was no question. I didn't think about that. That was just subconsciously. All of that accumulates into me going shooter buck, no doubt. Don't have to think about it. Don't have to look at it. Like, I'm ready to rock. And so they come down, and he's like grunting, dude, and doing all this crazy stuff, man, like crazy vocalization type stuff, behind her. And they stop it. Like, she stops like 20, stops like 25. And they make like these tiny little like steps over the next couple minutes where they end up like she's at probably 15, he's at 20-ish. And I'm just hoping that, like, at some point she doesn't break and run because it's in a weird situation where I could tell that wants to happen. And so, like, she does take a couple steps, and then he, like, charges at her, like, 3 steps. And I was getting ready to grunt call and rip, mouth grunt. And he ends up stopping, and he's at, like, probably 18 to 20 yards right now. And some pretty thick stuff. And I've been drawn. I didn't mention this. I've been drawn for like at least a minute, probably. I'll have to go back. I hadn't looked at the footage, but it felt like a good solid minute. And anyway, finally he kind of turns a little bit and like pretty much offers me a broadside, like he's facing towards the river because she's just slightly riverside of him on the trail. So he like faces it like the river and gives me a almost directly broadside. And so I'm like, all right, I'm shooting shoulder. And so I shoot shoulder and it hits the back part of the shoulder, which if you look at the anatomy of a deer, from the top of the deer, the shoulder blade kind of goes slightly forward and then hooks back towards the elbow and then goes straight down the leg, right?
Yeah.
And there's like a triangle there.
You hit him in the golden triangle.
I hit him in the triangle, dude. I mean, and so like I thought, well, where's it going to come out? I guess was kind of my thoughts, but he looked pretty broadside. It happened so fast. So, when you're filming it happens even faster. It's crazy. Anyway, so I shoot him and just fletchings disappear. He runs right down the river like 5 yards from my stand. He goes from about 18 on the other side to 18 on the opposite side and stands there for a second. And I'm like, I don't want to spook him, but he's not in the video. Like, I get the camera pulled around, my belly is just right in the way. I'm like, I cannot suck in anymore.
Yeah, Mister, I've lost weight. Whatever.
It was the Pop-Tarts, dude. It was the Pop-Tarts. So I couldn't quite get him in the video. And then all of a sudden, because I didn't want to spook him, so I didn't move at all because he was looking at me. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, he just starts falling over. I'm like, oh, and I like rip the camera around, and try to get it on him. And I think I get him like right after he falls, he kind of kicks a few times or whatever. And he died like in bow range, dude.
Oh man.
And I was like,
I've never had that happen. That's cool.
It was insane. So, I called my buddy John, and he's just the greatest, man. He came down there and helped me with everything as far as like pictures and video, finishing the video up and then dragging him out. He literally put the deer on the cart by himself, drug him, back to the truck, which was like probably 300-400 yards. He drug him almost the whole way. And I was just like, man, this is too much. And then he gave me a bunch of ground beef from a cow they had butchered and all this, like, just too much, man. And I was like, man, I don't know how I could ever repay you. He was like, oh man, when KC draws it in a few years, we'll just do it again.
Yep.
Yep. So, I was just like, man, this is a man's man right here.
That's right, dude.
So anyway, it was a really cool hunt, really cool way that it all happened. And we never found the exit hole until we actually got him broken down.
Yeah.
Could not find it. And it ended up being right above like where the elbow is on the shoulder. So it exited golden triangle too.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost dead broadside.
It was a rip.
It was a rip, dude. It was a rip. I was pretty happy with it, yeah, for sure. So, which I sent pictures to, just like I took a couple of cell phone pictures just as he laid there, or whatever. When I got up to him finally, and I sent pictures to our buddy Zach Fehrenball, and he was like the first thing he said was "great shot." I was like, "Yes." He don't even care about the fact that it's a buck,
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, it was a good time, man. It was kind of difficult. It would have been almost impossible to do by myself. Whenever you think about I've done it. I did it all twice, in Texas by myself. But Iowa deer's a little bit bigger, and the roads are real slick. Trying to get him up the road out of that hole to my truck, and then just getting the video and everything that we did, like it's just so much better with another guy. And so I was super thankful to John, man.
Yeah,
but cool thing.
John's a good dude, man.
He is.
I liked getting to hang out with him some up there whenever we were all there together.
Yeah,
but
for sure,
it's pretty valuable to kind of learn some things from locals, and it's kind of a hard thing to make happen. You can't. It sounds kind of bad, but you can't just trust every guy you see out at the parking spot on the WMA.
Mm-hmm.
Like some guys smell zesty and different things. But if you got a tag next year, which you will not, because it's not how Iowa works, but I might. Would you hunt? Well, let me rephrase that. How would you go up there and approach it? Would you just go hunt ridges and pound them until you kill one, or would you you did almost everything this year, right?
Yeah, I did. I did a lot of things.
What did you like the best?
I liked what I I mean, I
Killing a
like
deer?
walking 300 yards in and killing
Yeah.
a deer. You know,
Yeah.
like 300 yards, 220 of that being down a road. You know what I mean? Like, pretty slick little deal there. I think I hunted a property similar to that. That was a long ways in, but it was down a nice trail, and but it was same type of country, kind of just river bottom flat kind of thing, but with ag really close. And I think that was where I was going to go that evening, maybe. And I think that would be where I would prefer to hunt. I just feel like if you're hunting any kind of cruising or rutting type of action, that being along a creek system is a good thing. And I think that deer are going to travel on that creek system. And if you can blow your wind into the creek, you're probably going to do okay.
Yeah.
And so that would be like my choice. But, John seems to insist that those ridges are where you kill big bucks. And I believe it.
Yeah.
And I would go hunt that spot that I almost killed the day before. I would go hunt that again in a heartbeat. It's a tough place to get in, but it's a really cool little spot. And I think that it happens there quite a bit.
Do you feel like, when you and I went up there the first time, we felt like there was an advantage hunting private, and we got those permissions. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I feel like that if you have a private spot and you're kind of the only guy for the most part up there, that you're going to have an easier time seeing that 140 class deer plus than you would on public. But they are big ones on public too. It's just harder, you know what I mean? And another thing that I found hard was that at that point in the season, from what I understood, was corn was going to be more effective than beans at that time. And with the weather and everything, I guess that was going on, like you'd be better pressed to hunt like fresh cut corn. And so finding that near public was tough.
Yeah.
Finding deer that you could hunt moving from ridges or whatever, or river bottom to the corn was tough. And so, like, as far as just like finding that bed to feed pattern, that would be tough on public, tougher on public than private, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Makes
Anyway.
sense. Yeah.
But anyway, we had a good I had a good time there, and then we got to meet up.
We did. So the day you killed, I was driving, and I was freezing at my extremities off, pumping gas whenever you FaceTime me after you killed that deer. Like, it was one of those deals where it was a wet front,
Yep.
you know? So it was so cold and so windy, right? And I was driving up, kind of, when you're driving through a cold front to go hunting, there's not much more hype than that hype right there.
Dude, you're not lying.
It is so like,
Yeah.
you're just like a little
So it's one of the
lathered
best
dog.
parts of living in Texas. Like, you're driving north into a cold front
Oh, my
almost always.
goodness,
Like, if you're
yes.
driving away to hunt, you know.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, it is cool. And so I was headed up to hunt this cold front, and I've been like salivating over this new permission piece that we'd gotten in Kansas for like a week, right since we got it. And you just killed a deer, so I'm hype from that, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna go kill a deer tonight. It's gonna happen. And I talked to you. You know, you said, yeah, I'm gonna spend a lot of time getting this deer, you know, broke down and take pictures and all that stuff, and I'll be there, you know, but I won't get there in time to hunt tonight. So it's like, okay. So I go, and I'm just going to hunt by myself on this permission place. I got to go in and hang a stand, and I got to get all my stuff together, because no matter how much prep you do on your truck before you leave, you have to reorganize completely when you get to the hunting place. That's just, you cannot show up, grab your bag, and go. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I stop at the gate and do all that, and I drive in a little bit and park the truck, and I'm going to walk like 600 yards to my stand, whatever. So I walk in, and I'm getting real close to where I'm going to hunt, and where I'm going to hunt is I go across this flat, and then there's like a bluff that drops down to the creek, right? And I'm going to hunt in the trees along that bluff. And I'm like sneaking up because I know that like there could be deer in there. We put a corn pile in there, and
It's open.
yeah,
So
it's pretty,
deer can see you.
They can see you. Yeah. Luckily, I've got a little wind to cover noise and stuff. And I'm going to sneak up, make sure there's nothing at the corn, and kind of sneak in there and put my stand up. Well, I'm sneaking along, whatever, kind of doing my thing. looking around. I'm even doing the thing where like you take 2 steps in glass, like look around with your binos down there and try to pick, see hooves and stuff. Nothing in the corn. We're good to go. So I kind of take 2 more steps up to the edge, and then I look over to my right further, and there's a buck bedded right there, looking dead at me, just looking up. Like, what is that up there?
They see everything.
They see it all, man. And he wasn't in the spot I expected him to be. I didn't like it. It didn't really go through my mind that deer would bed there, but it makes sense. Like everything in hunting, it makes sense when you look back at it, But at that moment, I was like looking for deer at the corn. Well, he had gotten his belly full earlier in the day and decided to lay down over here. So, anyways, that deer sees me. We're both at a standstill. Nothing's happening. I say, okay, I gotta get out of this. So I take a couple steps backwards slowly, and he bolts. He gets out of there. Well, I'm kind of like down in the dumps. He's a pretty big buck. I can't really tell what he is. I know he's kind of non-typical-ish or something, but good bit of mass. And I'm thinking, okay, that's probably a shooter. I don't really know for sure. And he looked like a big fat slob laying there because he wasn't like Bambi curled up. He was like sprawled out. You know what I mean?
Back legs just sticking out.
That's right. Yeah. He was like, I woke him up hard. And he bolts, man. He gets out of there, and I was kind of like down in the dumps. But I was like, okay, he never smelt me. He didn't hear me. He just saw me peer up over and get skyline, so he doesn't have a clue what I am.
Basically just your head, probably, right?
Probably my head, maybe my neck, but he doesn't know what I am. He didn't see my full human outline, Something like at this point in time, I'm on my knees because that's what you do when you see a deer. Apparently, you drop to your knees. Yep. That's what happens.
I'm glad we're on the same page with
that.
That's right.
Yeah. So drop to my knees, and I'm like getting some footage of him running away, which is not the funnest thing to do. And then I look down, and there's another buck. And then there's another buck. And then another buck. And like 3 deer pop up. I don't know where they came from. But they're all bedded there somewhere. And they all pop up. And one of these deer, oh my goodness. He wasn't as big as my first impression was, but he's still really big. He's really wide and has a lot of tines.
He was going away,
which makes them the biggest. They don't have a clue what just happened. All they know is their buddy ran away. And they're like kind of milling around. And the big one's like at 40 yards, which if I'd have been hustling, I might have could have actually shot him, but that wasn't really on my mind. My mind was like, let me just get out of this situation.
Can't everything just calm down here?
Exactly. My thought was like, hey, he doesn't know what's going on. Maybe they'll stick around or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, he slowly works his way off and then kind of ends up trotting to another spot, and I think bedding down again down in the creek further down. And the other 2 bucks stick around, and then they go to sparring like 10 minutes later. Right here, right in front of where I was going to hang my stand, And I call you, and I'm like, hey, this just happened, and I don't know what to do right now. So I told you, it's like, I might stick it out, or really what I want to do is probably just leave and just let this all calm down. And you kind of agreed.
Cry.
Yeah.
Cry a bit.
I could go and I could wail in the truck, but I'd have to cry silently sitting there. So I decided to go back to the truck. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so left that, and at that moment, I decided, also there's a trail camera down there we were really pumped to check, and I didn't get to pull the card, which also made that worse, but it's okay because I had the real thing to look at. Decided at that moment that I was going to just live or die by that stand because I had good winds the whole time. The whole time I was going to be there, I had good winds. So I went back to where we were staying. I kind of prepped myself for the next day. And you came in, and we kind of powwowed out a little bit, and then I got up the next morning and left. Got up in plenty of time, but didn't leave enough time, which is how I usually roll. Which I was there in plenty of time, but it just took so long to put up the stand. My goodness, it's another hanging hunt in the dark, and that's why I was getting there early that day before, is that way I wouldn't have to do that. And what happened? It messed everything up. But so I hang. Make a bunch of noise, the whole gamut of things. Get hung probably 10 minutes after shooting light, which is not great. But here's the thing that you do. If you're in that situation, it's what I do at least. While it's still very dark, I'm just hustling, trying to be as quiet as I can, but I'm getting with it. Because you can get away with movement when it's pretty dark. And then it gets to a point where you have to slow it down 10 notches and just slowly kind of do stuff and kind of check your shoulders, and look around, make sure there's nothing there.
Try to shoot one off your sticks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. With the lineman's belt, just shoot one. But anyways, that's what took so long. But I finally got it in a good spot, and I ended up getting to pass a pretty good deer that morning. It was a decent 3, 4-ish, 9 point. I mean, you can't tell when you don't.
Probably
know the
not passing it like many other places.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, he's a very good deer, decent mass, real unique rack. One of those deer is going to surprise you what he scores because he's so curvy in, But either way, gave him his life. He walked by at 17 yards, not having a clue I was there. And then saw a spike or something else. It wasn't that great of a hunt that morning, but I just kind of figured that would happen because I had to hang in the dark and make noise, whatever. Long story short, hunt that evening, see some deer, and then it's the next morning, right? The last day of the hunt. Yeah, I was only there for 3 days. The next morning, go in high anticipation. I'd seen a buck on lockdown the night before, and I think he was a satellite buck because he just had that. He didn't have the dominant thing going on, The next morning, I'm sitting there. It's kind of getting a little bit later. I haven't seen a whole lot, and then here. When the first way you know a deer is there is by a snort wheeze. Oh man,
0 to 60.
Oh my goodness, it is quite intense. Well, it ends up the deer that I hear is 400 yards away, and it's a buck shadowing a doe, pretty much on lockdown. What they do out there, if they can see the doe, they get 80 yards downwind of her, and they stay exactly downwind of her. They just shadow her every move, and that's what he was doing. I saw him. And then found the doe, and they're working their way towards me. This is getting real cool. And it's natural. They're up on the side of a hill, but it's natural for them to funnel down into where I'm at and bed somewhere down in there because it's kind of the best cover, right? Well, they start to do that, and then that doe does the thing where, for some reason, they take off jogging out of nowhere, and she's jogging at me, and then it's oh, get ready, and then she kind of stalls out a little bit, and then that 9 point that I passed shows up. Him and the big buck posture for a while. And I say big buck, this buck's a big buck.
Yeah.
He's a toad. Tyler has seen him.
He's a tank.
He's a big 10, tight, or compact rack, but tall.
Yes.
I'm going to venture in the 162 to 165 range. Is probably where I'm going to say he's going to land. I don't know. I haven't thought too much about it because he didn't kill him, so it doesn't matter. He runs this 9 point off over the course of 10 minutes and just makes all kinds of noises I've never heard a whitetail do, which is really cool. And then the doe ends up coming in, and she ends up on a tree. Oh, while all this is going on, 3 3-year-olds are running amok right below my stand. Okay, so I'm saying I'm passing them, I guess. I just never attempt to try to do anything with them, Who knows? If I'd have tried to grab my bow, I might have spooked them and it wouldn't have happened, And that's not a true pass. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but if a deer sees you getting your bow, you didn't pass him. So, but anyways, and these are a couple of them are quality deer. A couple of them are broke off too, which was something you see a lot. Anyways, this doe ends up making it into 90 yards, and she is on the same trail that one of these deer is taken in to be 18 yards from me. So you start putting 2 and 2 together, and it's hot dog.
Yeah.
Is this about to happen? And once she got to there, I got my bow. Had to do a battery swap right in amongst all that, which is never fun. If you don't film your hunts, don't ever start because it's just going to add way more stress to your life.
You will kill less deer.
You will. You'll kill less deer. And the buck comes in, and that doe kind of locks up right there for some reason. I don't know if it's because of the 3-year-old that's at the corn pile is wigging her out or what. But she kind of stays there, but she's very calm. And then the big buck rushes her and makes a big loud noise or something.
Buck growl.
It was like a buck growl. And like, I was like, is he about to gore? I don't know. I thought, because my eyes were actually on her when it happened, which wasn't far from him, but like enough to where I didn't know what he was doing, like, and on an intricate level. I was like, is he about to gore her? Like, what is going on? And what he was doing, I think, is that she truly wanted to be down where I was, but he knew those other bucks were down there, and he didn't want her down there with him. He's like, okay, I have what it takes to whoop them, but I'd rather just not have to go through all that.
I could kill you too, girl.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Man, it stinks to be a doe. Like real bad.
Yeah.
But
Just held hostage all November.
Yeah, I know, man. That gummit, this thing with daggers off its face is just gonna, stay 80 yards from me all the time and boss me around. So he's like bumping her around a little bit. She's kind of wanting to bed. She's doing like the let me make a little B 360s. Like she's gonna bed down right there, and then he bumps her again, and I'm thinking, okay, she's gonna keep on coming my way. And she like takes 3 steps my way and then looks to her right and says, you know what? I'm going to climb that bluff right there. And proceeds to climb the bluff and dip over out of my life. And at that point in time, I snort wheezed because I was like, okay, there's no question he's going to follow her if I don't do anything. I snort wheeze. He takes 2 steps to me, looks at the bluff, looks at me, looks at the bluff. Looks down at the ground and ponders his life, and then there he goes up the bluff. Oh. And all the while, those 3-year-olds are like within 50 to 20 yards of me while I'm like snort wheezing at this buck, and they're like, "What's going on over here?" And what was interesting is that while all that was going on, that snort wheeze like fired 2 of them up, and they kind of like squared off or something while I snort wheezed him, which. In hindsight, didn't work. I almost feel like if I would have snort wheezed as soon as he and the doe were kind of like,
yeah, but they were coming at you.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
it's
just
like
can't do it.
You got to think it's going to work, right? I've been guilty of the past of like grunting at deer who are already headed my way, and that's not a good idea.
And no, it almost never works good for you.
No. Yeah. So might as well just like not let them know you exist, right?
Exactly. That's how I feel.
And it didn't work out. But the neat thing is, and this is where Tyler gets to enter the story. I see them go over the hill, and I'm thinking, well, they're gone, at least for today. But I'm checking my 6 a lot, looking behind me still when I can with these younger bucks still below me, and I see the buck head up into this ditch. And then I'll put it all together. Like, he ran her up there into a secluded spot to go bed for the day. Mm-hmm. We've got a buck on lockdown bedded down with a doe. We can do this on the ground. It's going to happen. And you got to tell yourself it's going to happen. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I call you and I say, hey, why don't you come over here and us decoy a buck? Because we learned last year you can't disclose the location of an animal. Right? Like that, we looked it up in the rule books. So you have to be very vague whenever you're communicating on devices of what you're talking about with deer. But you can't really bust somebody for saying, hey, there's a deer on the property, right? Like, everybody knows that. So it's like, hey, Tyler, here's what you're going to do.
I need you to help me decoy this thing.
Yes, let's try to kill this buck. And you had actually had a pretty eventful morning yourself.
I saw a good buck on adjacent property that I can hunt where I killed Frankenstein last year. And so I assume this deer is probably bedding in that property that I have permission to hunt. So that was exciting, and I'm looking forward to going back and hunting that deer. But
we both are ready to get back.
Yeah. And I also saw a toad 9-point chase a doe across the road right in front of me in the broad daylight, like right before I headed your way. It's just like, oh, so many deers.
I know, man. Like, lockdown's an interesting thing up there. Mm-hmm. It's not a bad time to be there.
Yeah.
So you show up, bring the decoy. I think, or was it in my truck or something? I don't know.
It was in your truck,
we got the decoy, and we start plotting and scheming and all this stuff. The wind is good. The deer are good. They're pretty much there for the day. to shorten it up a little bit, you and I go straight ninja and get to 45 yards from a sleeping doe and buck over the course of probably an hour, hour and a half, something like that, which is real fun, actually, because we were like doing the army crawl and laughing a lot.
We were. It's a lot different than last year.
Yeah, it is, because we discussed this while we were on the ground that the odds of it working out from the ground are so low that you kind of don't have the stress that much, you know. But like when you know there's a 160 plus bedded in a spot that you can get to, you got to try. Why not, right? And it's pretty far from my stand, so even if he does booger, he's not associating that with my stand location. We get into 45 yards. There's a pretty decent little lip edge that we can't get any closer on, and it's super windy that day, which 45 yards for me is what I would consider my effective range. But between the wind and, guys, honestly, it's hunting season. I don't get to shoot the bow near as much as I'd like to. 45 yards is kind of pushing it. I'd still take the shot out to probably about 50 on a good, perfect day. But there's a big difference in shooting your target standing in your yard as opposed to trying to shoot from your knees in a bunch of tall grass. You know, like it's just not the same thing. So, no shots there. We decide it's time to deploy the decoy. So we have that heads-up decoy, which is really awesome. It's worked well for us in the past, not in the perfect intended use of like getting a buck to come in and try to beat you up, but it at least gives you some good cover because they think you're a deer if they catch you moving around. Well, we're going to try to use it this day on the straight up. We're going to make this buck mad and get him to come to us. Well, it would have worked. I've seen him. He's in the right mood. He's ran deer off already that day. He's aggressive with the doe. He's ready to challenge any oncomer. In fact, I saw one of those 3-year-olds smell them up and follow him up in the canyon and then get run out like 3 minutes later. Like, I know he's doing it. Well, they are snoozing hard at this moment in time. So we stick the decoy up and nothing happens. And we're debating on when we should grunt to try to get his attention. And the doe. The doe is always the problem.
Dude, it's always the doe, Dad.
It's always the doe. The doe, we suppose, saw the decoy, or she saw like us moving around, which maybe, but I just feel like she saw the decoy, didn't like the fact that a deer she didn't know about got within 45 yards, or probably 40 to her.
And probably, how does that deer get to 45 without being seen already because that grass is short, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if they think about that logically, but there may be something in them that's like, I should have seen this deer by now.
Yeah.
It's pretty open and downhill to me, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, it didn't work out. And that doesn't mean those decoys don't work, but I think that that's the game you're going to play with the ground game decoy thing. Like, it's not going to work every time. So if you have like a single target buck that you're after, you got to be willing to spook him and hunt him 2 or 3 days later if you're going to do this thing, you know? But we just could not go after that deer at that moment in time. Long story short, she spooks out. He has no clue what happens, but he wakes up, sees his doe running away, and follows her to oblivion. And we actually pick him up again and try to make another move. But I've seen it before where the second bed thing isn't the most permanent thing, especially for the doe. I don't think they feel safe where they're at, you know.
Yep.
So before we even got to make a move, they were gone, and they actually ended up going back to my stand location over there, and
which is good.
It is good. They feel safe over there, but
Yep.
I didn't see them that evening. So
Well, that's not good. We were so close, man. I mean, I don't know. I think that, like you said, it's going to work, but you just kind of hope that you bust the 3-year-olds and the 5-year-olds don't bust. You know, it's like this is a huge deer.
what stunk is
know?
that we were so good. We got the 45 yards,
I know.
man.
We could have gotten closer if we hadn't had
The
that lip
terrain
edge.
would work better, and there was no way to get closer.
No.
There was short grass on both sides. Like, whenever you're crawling in a horizontal plane, the grass in front of you is cover. But anytime you have to go downhill, the deer can, now they're seeing you
Over
on
the
a
top
different,
of
yeah,
each
exactly.
grass in front of
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Oh man, I still think you're going to kill that deer when we go back. I think so.
That would be cool. That'd be real cool if that happened.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the help with that day, man. It was fun. It was
So
kind
much
of
fun.
back to like us getting to like hunt together, which was cool.
Yep. Yep.
Which we try to do that, but at the same time, you get to a point where we're trying to maximize efficiency.
Yep.
And if there's two of us hunting in two different places with two bows, it's more effective than one or two of us hunting the same place with two bows, even where usually if there's two of us hunting together, one guy is still kind of the guy who's going to get the shot, and then the other guy's like, hey, swap me stands or whatever. But
it's definitely like late in the season or late in a hunt when we're traveling and stuff. Well, we usually try to start splitting up, and I'm just waiting on the time that like we split up and then one of us shoots and then we get to go back together.
Yeah,
and
video the whole thing. Like,
It's like, this is the ideal situation.
Exactly,
here,
exactly. It's going to happen, man. And I think that we're going to probably head up there shortly after Thanksgiving. Try to give it another go and fill a couple tags. That's the plan.
You thinking same stand? You gonna go back in there and try to hunt that deer?
One of the days the wind isn't going to be good for it, so might have to go back to one of our other places to go hunt some public or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, are you thinking that you're going to go try to kill that toad daddy?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna spend as much time there as I can. I think that I can hunt it on several different winds.
Yeah,
it's north and south. So
I've been there before. I was there with you when we spotted Frank last year the first time. So it's a good little spot, man.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It is. It can create some long shots.
Yeah,
it's pretty open right in there. But I'm trying to work that out and get a little bit closer, get some kind of a ground blind. I don't know exactly what, but I've been thinking about it a lot.
Yeah.
So,
would a pop-up work there? Could you put a pop-up
I think
somewhere?
it would. I think especially if you took some tumbleweeds or something, it's kind of natural looking and brushed it in and or some grasses of sorts.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, sunflowers maybe. They need to make sunflower pop-ups.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Sunflowers are some of my favorites, man. I like their seeds. I like their cover. I like a lot of things about sunflowers.
They're pretty too, man.
They are, yeah.
That was one of our wedding flowers, mine and my wife.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I got her a bouquet of sunflowers for our anniversary the other day.
All right.
So, yeah.
That's very nice.
We're into it, man. Sunflowers are life, dude.
They are, man. I like it. That's going to term.
It's a sunflower state, actually.
It is, yeah.
So, makes sense.
It does make sense.
Well, I can't wait to get up there and hunt some more, man, and I'm actually going to go hunt this evening.
Are you?
Today's a cold front day.
All right,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to kill a deer today.
Well, I'm going to go eat a bunch of Thanksgiving.
Ooh, baby.
It's about time for me to do that.
It is about time for me to do the hunting thing, too.
Yeah, well, good luck, man. I wish I could be in the stand with you.
It's all right.
And I can't wait to do another Kansas recap in about a week where we
recap / BBB.
That's right. BBB. Well, anyway, guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. Don't forget the videos are continuing to release this season. They're just a couple weeks behind, maybe. That's the life that we live in when we only two of us. Who
doesn't like to watch a hunting video all the time, though, right? It's okay if it's not live.
Year round. I was watching fly fishing the other day. I mean, I love watching videos, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, keep tuning into that. We're going to be releasing Texas stuff very soon, if it hasn't already by the time this releases. And then we are going straight into the first Kansas hunts. And then we're going to go back into Iowa. And then we're going to go back into Kansas that we just talked about, those two hunts. And then who knows what happens from there. Hopefully we kill another Texas buck.
Ooh, that would be nice.
You going to make that happen tonight?
Possibly.
Yeah,
if given the opportunity,
dude,
sir.
This is the day, man.
This is a good day.
Get in there, be still, be quiet, and it's going to happen, dude.
Here's the deal.
It's a quiet afternoon.
Hunting out of a climber.
Ooh.
And it's weird.
Yeah.
The thing is we pour, all right, if y'all ain't figured that out yet. And I know stands aren't that expensive, but they're expensive. And at this point in time, I cannot buy another stand, and I am in a loner climber, which I'm very appreciative of, but it's not ideal, probably just because I'm not used to it, right? So I just don't know what I'm doing. But anyways, I'm going to do my best to make it happen. And I think it's a good night. And I checked the trail camera. Brian Broderick's strategy is no matter what time of day the deer's there, go hunt it because it's the rut, right?
Mm-hmm.
The curvy 8 was in there last night.
Well,
So-
he's going to be back in here. It's perfect timing, dude.
I know.
And this is, dude, it's a quiet evening.
I'm going to get so sensed.
It's one of the, like, the pressure is like,
oh, yeah.
up,
Pressure's high.
rising, and it's going to be good, dude.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, so.
Speaking of pressure, guys, don't feel pressured by this.
No.
But let me encourage you. This is going to launch on Black Friday, all right? Get out in the woods and don't do Black Friday stuff. If you can avoid it, like, don't buy in the hype. Get out, go hunting, because that's what we live for. You can shop like 10 months out of the year, but November is about hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about family, though, too. So if your wife is like, hey, I need you to go with me, go with your wife.
Yeah. Or more like if she's like, hey, you need to watch the kids while I go.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
that's what I've been in
See, that's
before.
the thing is that, so Friday night I have to go with my wife to Dallas, which is terrible because it's Black Friday and traffic's going to be horrible. But
Yeah.
she takes her exit exam to be like the big, lots of letters that she's going to have after her name.
All right.
So it's going to be kind of one of those like brownie point things where
Yeah.
it's like, all right, I'm going to take this little bit of time. We're not going to hunt Saturday. I'm going to go do this with you, let you stay in a nice hotel, drive you places. But then you're going to be my sugar mama. And
That's right. I am not working next year.
That's right.
Next year I will not work.
But anyways, I said that about Black Friday kind of tongue-in-cheek. But, guys, remember your family this time of year.
Sure.
Like, we can get super selfish, me in particular, about just wanting to hunt all the time because it's fun. But be sure you're there for your family because that's what matters a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Remember what you're thankful for, and don't just make that about material things, but think about the more spiritual stuff, the more complex things. Think about your family and just all the blessings that God has given you, because no matter who you are, if you're listening to this right now, you're a blessed person.
That's right, man. You're live. You're live, man. So anyway, it's a good way to wrap it up, dude. God bless you guys. Remember, this is your element.
Living it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.